And good morning, Hoosier Nation, and welcome to maybe Groundhog's Day edition of Hoosier Morning After from past seasons, past games this season. Just frustrating, just aggravating. You know what? Let's all vent. Let's all let it out. Let's have some therapy together. Welcome to Hoosier Morning After. This is Hoosier Morning After Penn State. Last night, your Indiana Hoosiers go on to disappoint yet again in a 85-66 loss to Penn State at Penn State, taking the Hoosiers to 10-6 on the season and an abysmal 1-4 in the Big Ten. I'm your host, Chad Schwartzkopf. Here with me always is Martha, the mop lady, to talk about it. It's an aggravating one. It's a tough one to talk about. It's an uncomfortable one to talk about. It's a familiar one to talk about. There's many descriptive words, none of which are pleasant to say, none of which is joyous to talk about, but is equally all too familiar for us as Hoosier Nation and Hoosier fans. This was a game that started off as, at least if you want to take some positive, as the last two games have, with feeling a little bit better, feeling good, things looking a little bit better, plays being run, defensive intensity picked up, and then the wheels come off again. Guys get lazy, guys fall apart on habits, the defense scheme just falls apart. You abandon the scouting report and let a team that is known to hit threes have all the threes they want. And the offense goes back to the stagnant movement, no plays. Then you go into half feeling a little dejected, but there's plenty of game left. Come out of halftime, things look a little good. Hoosiers bring it within 5 a couple times. And then the same thing happens. A repeat of the first half. We fall apart. We give them open shots. And the offense gets stagnant again. It's tough. It's aggravating. Here on the show to this morning, Martha and I will kind of go over a few of those points. Maybe try to figure out what we think is going on. Analyze things and see what we see. But it's a tough one, guys. Thank you for being here. Thank you for suffering with us as always. Martha, give me your open thoughts on this one.
Yeah, I mean, look, you knew when Race went down, and obviously that was following X going down, that there was going to be some adjustments that were going to be made, and it could be a little bit painful. And I think that was known just with the leadership and the defense specifically that those two guys provide, and of course X's offense. It's a tough ask, but that said, I think it's. When we talked early on coming into this season, we talked a lot about depth and how are all these guys going to get minutes and really a strength of ours. And it's quickly turned into a question mark, maybe even a weakness, where we lose two guys and all of a sudden the wheels are falling off. And not only are they falling off, we look lost in the process. The thing about Penn State, specifically is what their strength is. It's shooting 3-pointers. The stats, you spend 2 minutes on Ken Pom and you realize, man, when they hit a certain amount of threes, they win. So what should the defensive game plan be going into this game? And the open looks they were getting, the over rotations, it made you, quite honestly, it made everybody, I think, probably sit on their couch and wondering what went into the preparation here. And how are these the looks they're getting when the strength of their offense is known? And then you combine that with the things that you touched on in terms of body language and just sequences of what appear to be a lack of any type of intensity or urgency. And it's almost like it has to be asked and begged for. I don't know. It's got to get fixed soon, or this season is probably going to fall off the rails a little bit if it hasn't already. So, I never would have thought that those two guys, obviously, again, I know their absence is something that was going to negatively impact this team, but it's something that I thought that they could have competitively absorbed, if that makes sense, in terms of, it's going to be an adjustment, but next man up, right? It's like, we've got the talent, we've got the depth. And then, one other thing, I'm sure we'll talk about it a little bit more, is when you talk about adjusting to missing those two guys, you've got a guy that in Miller Kopp that's shooting 40% from the 3-point range. He shot one last night. So what exactly is our game plan going into these? And I'm not sure I understand it. And I think that kind of starts at the top a little bit, but just another frustrating night and what's starting to feel like somewhat of a theme.
Yep. And there was something really well said, a word really well said. And I already kind of said it by Coach Tonsoni last night when I was watching Assembly Calls post game. And it's the word habits. And the habits on this team are so bad. And I think that kind of clicked something to me when I was looking back at things, is that without having that strong leadership or person in there, what does a team do? They fall back on habits. And the bad habits on this team is that ball watching on D. We just get stuck ball watching, and that's where we lose our man. We overhelp and we're watching the ball. Our man's open. He slides a little bit farther away from us, wide open three. And that's led to the defense has fallen now to about 70, 71, I think 72 possibly in Ken Palm, when it was above 15 at one point in this game. And maybe that's a broader conversation too, talking about this defense in the sense that that's what we were going to hang our hat on. And last year, that was the identity of this team. Woodson came in and was going to install a defense, a tough-nosed defense, because that's what he learned from his mentor. And that was something that he felt that he could put in place first before he concentrated on the offense. And going into the season, I think that's what had a lot of us disillusioned to a degree on how high the ceiling could be, because we thought, all right, we've got the defense figured out. We know what we're going to get from that. Now we can click on the offense and get that going. Well, the offense is struggling and the defense has taken a step back. So it's tough. Your thoughts on this defense? What does it go from now? How does it find it back? How do we click again?
Yeah, I mean, I think the best we've looked defensively, arguably, in the last week to 2 weeks is when we played a 2-3 zone against Northwestern. And I mean, you're talking about a defense that was top 15 early in the season. And I don't see how losing to, obviously, again, I'll say it again, like his on the ball defense and obviously race down low, they make a difference defensively, right? I understand and I get that. I just don't think that's an excuse for this team to fall off defensively how they have. They're just completely out of position at times. And to your point, it's bad habits. Well, how do those habits get in place in the first place? Because you've seen this team when they're good defensively. I mean, they suffocate teams and they make it really hard. And we've still, the guys we've lost, we still start, 2 seniors, a third-year guy, a second-year guy, and a freshman. I mean, it's not like we're lacking experience. And these guys have practiced against that defense. They know where they're supposed to be and what they're supposed to do. I don't know if it's between the ears. I'm not sure. I don't have an answer. But what I can confidently say is I don't think there's a massive excuse for this. I just don't. It's not like you're relying on 4 freshmen to go out there and do things that they've never been asked to do. These are guys with experience. These are guys that, it's just, somebody's got to step up and be a leader. And again, I don't know what goes on behind the scenes. None of us do. But, when they're out on the court, that's all we can go off of. And at times there just seems to be a real lack of urgency. And that shows on the defensive end. And the thing about it is just being able to handle adversity. We've talked a lot about that, and not to bring up the word hump because I'm tired of that. But it's like anytime there's a minor speed bump, it's the end. And because there's no handling of the adversity. I don't, again, no good answers right now. You look at the schedule and what's upcoming, and it's, there's concern because it's not getting any easier. I mean, this was supposed to be, a stretch that when you look at the schedule were games that we should get some W's on and then help us prepare for what's supposed to be a tough stretch. So where do you go from here? And that's the big question I think this team faces right now.
Now, you mentioned a little bit talking about the players being out and not having X and all that. And for me, or for anyone that's listened to me talk on this show in past years and stuff, the one thing I always say, and the common word, and the player that I always want on teams is a dog. I want that. You need that dog player, and I don't know who that player is right now with the current available players that are playing there. I think Trey has the capacity to be that, but he is struggling to a degree right now. That's what I think we miss the most from not having X, is being that initial defense tone setter, stopping their point guard from the get-go from getting into any sort of offense that they want, therefore kind of infecting the rest of the guys around him. You just see a team out there that lacks that dog and lacks that anger out of one of the Indiana players. You just, even on the telecast, Bardo was talking about it, just the body language from the team, how demoralized they looked, how much they sank down. There was 8 minutes left. Yeah, we were down by, I believe, 10, 12 points, but there was 8 minutes left, and the body language we had already lost. This team had already given up. There was no one out there saying, pardon my language, F no, let's get going. So I don't know what's going on in that sense. Again, it's we can speculate till the cows come home, but us watching, we only have what we can see in the games, and there is something up in that sense. And your thoughts? I mean, who gets mad for this team? Who leads this team? Who's leading this team right now?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's you even think about some of the noise that's been involved lately in terms of whether it's social media, and I'm sure we've all seen that. There's idiots all over the place, right? That whether it's tweeting directly at a player or tweeting something out of line, and regardless of what it is, I think there's idiots all over social media. It gives voices to every single person and access to players and all that stuff. But part of it's being able to block that too, right? Just put your head down and go, and not worry about that. That shouldn't even be on your radar. You got to have the mental capacity to say that stuff doesn't matter. It's coming from idiots. We've got a job to do. Let's just go out, put our head down.
And even so, use that as fire and come out and 100%. Shut them up on the court.
100%. It's just,
shut them up by your play.
Yeah, it's just, and I'm not saying defending yourself shouldn't be an option. I get that. Mm-hmm. I do completely. But when you combine engaging that way with the way we've looked on the court, it leads to the question: is this noise? Can this team handle noise? Can this team handle adversity? If so, why not? And to me, that kind of starts at the top, and you've got to put this team in a position to be able to block that noise. And I don't know how you get there. That'd be a question maybe more for individuals that have coached at a high level. But it just seems like to me that any bit of noise can affect this team, and that falls a little bit on what you just mentioned, leadership, right? Who's going to be the leader on this team to say, hey, don't that we're not worrying about that, right? Idiots. We've got work to do. Let's go out. And when things get tough on the court, it's the same thing. Who's going to be that guy, to your point, that steps up and is that leader on the court and doesn't let that adversity make the wheels fall off. So there's just more questions than answers right now, and we've got to figure it out quick.
And around those lines of just being the dog, being angry out there, what I wanted to see in this game was we were never really in much foul trouble. And if your defense is struggling, get more aggressive with it. Get some fouls. That's all right. Make them earn those 3-pointers. They were shooting lights out. Again, that's what they do. They had a freaking ridiculous night. As our dumb luck is, as Hoosier Nation, we tend to let one player kind of get hot and do things that they normally don't do. This time, we let the whole team get hot and do what they don't do. With them making 18 threes, a career record, or a program record out of 31, shooting 58%. Now, when I saw that happening, Look, in scenarios in basketball games, if and it happened to Trace Jackson Davis, it happens to him a lot. That's why he's one of the leading 3-point attempt takers. He gets the ball underneath, and he's going to get an easy layup or an easy dunk or something. So teams, what you do is you foul them. You make them earn those points. Make them earn those 2 points and stuff, rather than getting those other ones. Give those fouls. Why not do the same thing in 3? They were comfortable. They were hitting everything. Number 10, I believe it is, on their team, was shooting some Steph Curry style threes way out there, very comfortable and everything. And you look at that and you see, well, of course he's going to take that because he's feeling comfortable. We weren't defending it right, because you usually don't defend that far out of a shot. But they felt comfortable, and we were doing nothing to make them feel uncomfortable. So I think they needed to shift. IU needed to shift into that same mentality. Let's get out there. Let's foul some of those guys taking 3-pointers. Let's let them get to the line and earn those 3 points. Let's make them uncomfortable. Let's make them scared that when they're about to take that shot, they might get fouled shooting that 3. So that might knock them off the thing. That was something that just kind of hit me at one point too. I mean, you don't see that tactic being taken very often, because normally when guys get fouled shooting 3s, you're kind of like, oh no, and you roll your eyes. But there's just some adjustments like that just aren't made by this team. And again, I think that gets back down to the dog in it. Talk about maybe that overhelping in that kind of situation. What are your thoughts on all that?
Yeah, I mean, it's we talk about the way the defense looked early in the season and the way it looks now, and the big difference. And obviously, the big difference between early in the season is now is obviously the competition's increased. The scouting is improved. And, I think that's been the one question around this staff, specifically Coach Woodson, is, he comes from the NBA. He doesn't, the college game is a bit new to him. And thus far, I think that was, you go back to even when he was hired, and I think the immediate question marks that were kind of alleviated when you learned who was going to be surrounding him in terms of Thad Matta and Dane Fife, and then, being able to keep Coach Hunter, etc. But then you look how that's evolved a little bit into this season, and kind of the comments that Coach Woodson is kind of his own coach, right? He's not a guy that's going to take a lot of, outside advice, so to speak. And that's mostly, hearsay or secondhand and just things you've heard, right? But, it does, when you see the way the team looks and I'll call it lack of adjustment, right? And even being able to adjust on the fly, it leads to some of those questions on, what goes into the preparation, right? It's this, and I think that there's really an opportunity for Coach Woodson to be better in that area. Obviously some of it falls on the players being out of position, but what goes into the preparation, because there are times this team just looks completely lost. And if you're practicing this and it's not correlating, and he did make the comment to his defense after the game, he's like, there are some things we did out there that I've never seen us do, that we've never practiced. Well, if that's the case, why? These players should be conditioned to be in position all the time. And, that's got to be the mindset. But to me, I just go back to the top and ask what goes into this preparation. These guys are experienced and should be in position. I'm not sure if they're just overthinking it. You talk about a guy like, and I thought Jordan Geronimo looked better out of the gate, but it felt like that had to be begged and asked for. It took a sit down conversation. It just seems like it's always a battle, to get this team to do what it needs to do to compete. And I don't know. I go back to, I'm rambling, but again, it just goes back to not having the answer. I don't know. This is such a far cry from where we were a month ago. It just makes you wonder, outside of the injuries, what's gone wrong here. So, yeah, it's a tough one, Chad. I'm at a loss for words. I'm not, but I am.
Yeah, we all are in that sense. And that quote that you said, actually, I marked down. Woodson says, quoting, "There were a couple of times we did things that we never talked about during scout or practice. You just shake your head and ask, why did we do that?" And yeah, we all are asking why did they do that? And it's your job then to address that in the game situation, being, do you take that player out? Do you adjust? And if it's the sense of on the offensive side, look, this coaching staff has to run more stuff, has to run more actions, run more plays. And that's what we did at the beginning of both halves. You got to put these guys in the situations to win. And I get that coach wants to play this free-flowing NBA style, but that's not the case with this team and the current talent that we have. They need more guidance. And it's time for Woodson to see that in the tape and adjust to that. And it's scary to think that, because this is something that we had to deal with Archie. There was a stubbornness to Archie that we couldn't get past, that we got aggravated with. And I'm scared that we're getting into the stubbornness with Woodson. Is he just being too stubborn to not adjust for these guys? Now, is there evidence to say maybe it's not, and it's just that these guys are falling back on habits? Sure. When you have two halves where you start the halves well and you start with a good game plan and you're getting offense and you're getting things going and the defense is better, and then you fall back, sure, that can be the coaching staff at the beginning of both halves, meaning the beginning of the game and at halftime, planning for things and trying to get things going. But then you have to figure out now, how do you adjust to that? How do you get the guys that are there on the court to snap back out of it? And I think that becomes a struggle as a coach. And then again, this is not to pull any blame from the coaching staff at all by saying this, but I think what helps you in these situations is what we already talked about. Having that leadership, having a senior leaders that snap the guys back into it. When you huddle up after a foul or an out of bounds play, what is being said? Who is speaking up? Who is talking in those huddles? Is it just, oh, well, here's what we do. We always gather together, guys. All right, we got to do some stuff. And then you're getting out. Or is there a guy getting in the face? That's what I want to start seeing. Who is yelling? Who is getting things going? What is our body language? Because the body language is not good right now. But to that argument, again, switching it back so I can throw it to you, it's that offense. What is our offense? How do we get this team to keep playing those offense? Because we do see windows of that. Now, again, the argument is you've got Miller Kopp only shooting 1, 2, 3 threes. Let me pull up as we're talking about it. But and he's shooting really well. And we finally run a pin down screen for him to get him an open 3 look, and he makes it. He only shot 1. He shot three shots total, two for 3, but makes the 1 3 on a great pin down action to get him wide open. Why don't we do that more often? It's just, the offense is frustrating right now. Your thoughts? Oh, I think you're muted.
Yeah, 100%. Yep.
Now you're good.
Can you hear me now? Good. Yeah, 100%. It's the same thing with the defense. Just a lack of, to me, it appears like we're trying to operate like we've got a full healthy team. And, you made the point. We talked about it earlier, just, not adjusting to what you have in the moment. And when Miller Kopp is shooting 45% from 3, why not work to get him some looks? Why not try some other guys? We saw a guy in Anthony Leal that made a couple starts last season. Why not give him a run? Because clearly what we're doing right now isn't working. And, not being able to make those adjustments, again, it goes back to the same questions. It's like, it starts at the top, right? You've got to put these guys in a position to be successful. And right now, I don't get the sense that we are. And that, whether that's the game plan, whether that's not being able to adjust in the moment, but clearly if we're missing some guys down low, Jalen clearly didn't have his best offensive game, 5 for 15 from the field, 1 for 4 from 3. So why not try to run some sets to get some other guys some looks, right? And that's where I'm at with it. Again,
and you can't rely on the freshman to be out there and create like he is. It's been a bonus for us.
Yeah, and he's he led us in attempted field goals by 5 shots, right? And to your point, that's a big ask, and so it's guys like you look at those next guys up, and I kind of put Jordan and Tamar and even Malik Renew, and he's again another freshman, but it's guys that it's those guys that consistently need to step up, but they've got to be in a position to do so, and that's where I think the big opportunity is, and right now it seems like it's business as usual, and this business as usual isn't working. So we've got a ranked opponent coming into town on Saturday, and if it's a fourth straight game of this type of effort, this type of execution, then it's going to get noisy, it's going to get ugly fast, and at least we've got some time to fix it and a lot of season to fix it. But man, there's again just a ton of questions right now.
Yeah, and to at least shift to brighter things for a moment. And I'm quick to point out too when I'm wrong on things. And I know a lot of us, this is probably a majority of almost everyone, when that starting lineup was announced, we all looked at Jordan's name on that and go, oh man, not again. Because he struggled last game and he couldn't get things going. And we did not get that this game. We got Jordan that we want and that we need, the guy that does the little hustle plays, the things outside of it. That beautiful segment where he got the block and got it out to Trace Jackson Davis. Now, it didn't lead to a basket. That was definitely a shift in momentum and something that could have been positive. But let me shift back to the positive. And Jordan looked a lot better in this game. He finished out of all the players that played meaningful minutes in this game with one of the highest plus minuses at just -2. But your kind of thoughts on Jordan? Oh, got you muted again, Martha.
Dang it! I'm sorry. I'll get that one of these days. Yeah, I think it was a much better effort by Jordan, but it's also a guy that's a junior, and I just go back to the fact that and Coach Woodson I think mentioned on his radio show that he had a sit-down discussion with Jordan and essentially told him that he needed more out of him, that this is your opportunity, I need more out of you. And it just feels like this team is that's what it takes to get guys to step up. It's got to take a sit-down conversation. It almost feels like, hey, I'm begging you to step up. We need you. And that's it goes back to you talking about having dogs, right? It's like, if you've got a bunch of dogs, do you even need to have that conversation? I mean, dogs are drooling at the opportunity. They're like, let me off my leash, let me go. And I don't get that sense with these guys. And again, it's easier for me to say sitting here at my computer, and I'm not behind the scenes. I don't know what goes into the preparation, but here's a guy that I think when we talked about this season and the way he ended last season, the thought was, man, this guy's going to have a breakout type season. And at times this season, he's looked pretty lost out there, whether it's offensively, defensively. And you've got two guys that go down, and it's like, man, here's your opportunity to step up. And even then it felt like, didn't feel like it took a sit down conversation for this to happen. And again, I know you wanted to be this to be kind of a positive conversation. And I think it is, right? I mean, I'm glad that he came out, and hopefully for me, it's about consistency. We've seen it out of Tamar. We've seen it, now a game that Jordan came out and played well. Well, what are we going to look like Saturday? Are we going to have to hope that, is it going to be continued hope that one of these guys steps up? Or are we going to actually have some consistency where these guys are putting back-to-back performances and become guys that we can rely on consistently?
Yeah, it's who steps up. I mean, that's the biggest thing, and a player that I think has the opportunity to do such thing is Tamar Bates. He finished the game 4 for 9 from the field, 1 for 3 from 3. Made both of his free throws. What I want out of Tamar is I want more aggressiveness. He's a guy that should be multi-leveled in how he can score and how he can affect games. And this is to the point of maybe him calling out, Jalen figuring it out, and the coaching staff. We need to run more things for guys. And again, this jumps back to, I guess, something we said earlier, talked about earlier, is that there is the talent on offense. There is the the situations, there are the things that can happen for this offense that we saw in this game. They just need to be run at a consistent level, and we can't rely on when things get tough, the team just relying on Jalen Hood-Schifino to create his own shot and become the star that he is, like he did the previous game, or Trace Jackson-Davis being able to dump it down to him, which we should have been able to do more, because there were times, as the announcer said, where the biggest guy out there was 6'6". A majority of our roster is 6'6". So that should have been something we could have taken advantage of. But I look for Tamar to be a little bit more of a creator for himself and a threat that requires some attention. Your kind of thoughts on Tamar in this game and just overall?
Yeah, I think you look at his line, and I think at 23 minutes, 11 points, and knocked down a 3, hit his free throws. I don't think it's a bad line. I just think, as you mentioned, we need more. There's the opportunity to provide more. And again, it just goes back to are these guys being in so just you watch, and it just seems like there's not a whole lot of movement on the offensive end, or action or activity. And again, try to running it through Trace, but where do we go from there? And that's where I see the big opportunity is we haven't adjusted to the roster we have, right? It looks a lot different than it did early in the season. And so I struggle to put, especially guys like that are out on the perimeter, I struggle to criticize a ton, just because I'm not sure that they're in the position to even be criticized, right? I mean, I think that they're trying to create on their own, and that's a tough ask, but I don't think we're running anything to get them great looks. And that's where I think the adjustment needs to take place, is we've got to get a little creative with the roster we have. And we can't just keep operating and keep operating the way we have and think that something's going to change. So I think, we've got a few days here before we play again on Saturday, and hopefully we see, there's kind of got to be a reset, a mental reset, a season reset, and figure out how we can tackle this, because there's a ton of opportunities left on the schedule. I've got to show a little bit of humility and be able to say, man, we've got to attack this a little bit differently, because what we're doing is not working. And again, I think Tamar's a guy we can rely on as long as we put him in a position to be successful.
Yeah, and that's, I guess, the dual-edged sword for me, is that there is still time in the season. There still is a lot of season to go. There's some tough stretches of the season to come. We get into the kind of meat of the Big Ten as we kind of move forward on our next 5+ games. So that's where the double-edged sword is. There is talent on this team. There is advantages to this team. There is a world where this team turns it around, finds something, clicks, and gets going, because many of these losses that we've had, again, I think it's 6 of the last 8, 6 of the last 9, I think, actually. That makes it sound a little bit better. Has been situations where we just click on a few things and a few situations that we don't let the games get out of hand, and the things get better. On this one, it was just kind of defensive intensity, just not overhelping and everything, and just focusing on the proper habits. And this game was in hand for us. Because again, Penn State has been struggling recently. They were on a 2-game losing streak themselves, and came out with fire in this, and got hot in a way that they normally don't. And a lot of that was luck on their part, and a lot of that was given luck and steam by Indiana. But looking forward, I'm not. The ship isn't quite sinking for me yet. We have maybe discovered some holes, but I believe they are patchable. And I think this ship can get righted in the correct way. We just need to be aware of that, both from a coaching staff and from a player standpoint of what can I do? Look at yourself. Let's not look at the team overall. Look at yourself as a coach. Look at yourself as a player. And what can I do that benefits this team? What can I do that steps up and gets us to that next level? And things can get all right. And we can do better. Martha, let's shift maybe. Give me your kind of closing thoughts on this game and then things moving forward?
Yeah, I think that when you look at what's in front of us, right, it does no good to focus on what's in the rearview mirror. There's to what you just mentioned, a ton of opportunity in front of us, right? I mean, we're kind of at what feels like a crossroads here. We've let a stretch of, I think, on paper winnable games end up as losses. But again, there's a ton of opportunity, and while I certainly think that maybe our ceiling's lowered a bit in terms of it's going to be a real challenge to we were talking early on about potentially winning the Big Ten, and I don't think that's I think our ceiling's probably lowered a little bit, but again, that doesn't mean that there's not a ton of opportunity for this team to go on, make the tournament, and make a little bit of noise. But it's going to take a major reset by all involved. It's going to take blocking out the noise, because things are loud right now, and they're only going to get louder if we continue to struggle. So it's not letting that type of stuff affect you. It's putting your head down. And you got a couple guys here that they're in their last season. This is their last go at it. And it's going to be up to them to kind of determine how they want to leave their legacy in terms of, are we going to let this last season be one that we want to forget, or are we going to turn it around and make a little bit of noise? So that's what I'm interested in seeing, because I don't even like to think about what would happen if this continues on the way it's going. So again, it's all about opportunity for me. Try to flush it and stay as positive I can, but it's pretty tough right now. So looking forward to seeing how they come out on Saturday.
Yeah, but speaking of opportunity, there's 3 home games here coming up in the Big Ten season, just in January alone. That's an opportunity that if you don't have the opportunity to go to the game, you can give those tickets off and get someone that hasn't had the opportunity to go see the Hoosiers live in action. Martha, tell the people what they do with those tickets if they're not using them.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to do so. HoosierTicketProject.org, our nonprofit that I'm sure everybody's either seen or heard of at this point. Mission of sending deserving families, first-timers, removing the financial barrier and helping getting families to games. And as Chad mentioned, some home games upcoming. If you can't make the game, if your plans have changed, if you've got tickets and can't use them, consider us. We've got a real solid pool of families, youth that have requested tickets that are well qualified that can make the game. So just keep us in mind. HoosierTicketProject.org/donate, and it will walk you through how to donate those tickets. So appreciate all of our donors and the support they've given us.
Yes, a great program, a great situation for the Hoosier Nation out there. So that's it. I don't know if there's much more horse we can beat. I think that horse is down on the ground. I think what we need to do now as Hoosier fans is I get your frustration, I get your aggravation, but this is the time where we can't add to it. We can't snowball what is already hurting these players and everything like that. We need to stay strong and support these guys. Get out there at this game that's coming up for the Hoosiers against Wisconsin. That game is on Saturday at 1 p.m. It's a home game. They need us out there. They need to hear us and everything. Try to stifle yourself. I know Hoosier Nation is a very knowledgeable fan base, and we're going to want to boo, and we're going to want to express our frustration with this team. They know. The team knows. The players know. And let's just be supportive for them, and let's hope that they can turn these things around. And there is the time to get that going. And let's be there for this team. Let's put this behind us. And let's hopefully look forward to brighter situations. Whether that's good or bad, Martha and I will be here with you, helping you through some of those situations. Thank you for tuning in to this Hoosier Therapy session. We appreciate all you guys. Appreciate you guys there in the live chat, Nick and Jen. Always great to have you guys there with us. Those of you listening on the podcast feeds, thank you as well. We'll be back again the morning after the next show. Until then, thank you for being with us. You can follow me on Twitter at General Chadwick. Follow Martha on Twitter as well. You can find her there very easily. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you next time, guys. Until then, go out there, have a wonderful day. And as always, let's go Hoosiers.